Good evening and welcome to the Freak Film Festival's virtual screening of a series of documentary shorts produced by the documentary Detroit Fellows. My name is Kathy Kaliszewski. I'm the artistic director for Freak Film Festival. So if this is your first Freak Film Festival event, a little bit about us. We are a documentary-focused film festival based here in Michigan that screens films that are relevant and resonate throughout the state and the region. My day job is the senior news director for visuals at the Free Press. So I'm particularly excited to be hosting this event because I oversee the photography department at the Free Press. This is a series of 5 shorts done by the Documenting Detroit Fellows, photography fellows. We're going to be kicking off 3 Thursdays of amazing photography based on this work of a series of photojournalists based here in Detroit. And tonight we're going to have 5 films followed by 5 conversations with the photographers that are responsible for this work. I want to pull in to the conversation and to explain a little bit more about what Documenting Detroit is, Kara Schaefer, who's the executive director, to kind of break down what this is and what we're going to see tonight. So Kara, take it away.
Thanks, Kathy. So as Kathy said, we are Documenting Detroit. We're a fellowship for emerging photographers. We've been running in Detroit since 2016. And we've worked with 65 different photographers in the Detroit area. We are a juried free fellowship program, and we focus on telling stories about Detroit that are not normally seen in the news and that are told by Detroiters. It was something that when we founded this project, and I should say Alan Chin and I founded this project, and we were really looking to see images that were made by Detroiters, that were of Detroit, and that really got at things that we didn't see. So during our fellowship program, which runs for about 3 months, fellows are paired up with professional journalists, editors, curators. They work on a story, and then the stories that you guys are going to see tonight here on this live stream are the culmination of that 3 months. This past year was pretty intense. We ended right as the pandemic started. So our 2019 cohort, this is their time to finally shine. We're really excited to debut this work. A lot of the people that have gone on from our fellowship program are now working with National Geographic, shooting for the New York Times. They're making documentary films. They're having gallery shows. And we're just really, really excited to be able to work with all of them. So our first documentary short that you're going to see is by Yvette. She's an interdisciplinary artist here in Detroit, and she focused on telling stories of motherhood from the perspective of 5 different mothers here in the city. So we'll go ahead and let that roll.
I was born here in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm mostly, I don't know, I've been mostly from the west side. I grew up on Finkel and Hubble for forever, and that was my area. I feel like, my story kind of started really, like when my granny passed, I think I have to say. It's kind of like when life really started happening for me. And when things started to really feel real and things really, I became an adult, I guess you can say.
Motherhood is being a medium. I am nurturing and protecting and trying to teach my children to live in a world one day without me. So I am their medium. One of the most challenging times I have as a mother is having enough resource and I think emotional capacity to parent well.
No, look at my sheet and then see if
I feel like it's the hardest job I have in my life, but the most important one. And to me, it means selflessness, because I give up so much of myself to be a mother.
Motherhood is our beautiful opportunity to create the future, to have our hands in painting what the diaspora will look like. One of the more challenging things of motherhood, I think, are trying to manage what the expectations you have of yourself, the expectations your family may have of you, and then trying to navigate through those. Then you have cultural expectations, and then what is realistically the true expectation is what the Father expects of us. But I think sometimes as mothers, we kind of get caught up in everybody else's expectations instead of looking towards what the needful portion is.
So I always try to wake up before Rami wakes up, just to have peace of mind. If I'm lucky, if I'm not racing against the clock, I get morning meditation or a workout or yoga in, if I'm lucky. The word that describes motherhood for me is like quite literally mama. And I don't know, it makes absolutely no sense, but in a lot of Middle Eastern cultures, you call your children as a mother, mama. And so it is just that word that resonates.
Oh, my name is Priscilla Probson. I'm 38 years old. I'm a wife, a mother of 6, soon to be 7 children. I also work as a nurse both at a pediatric hospital and working from home for a primary care clinic. My oldest child is 14, so I've been momming it for 14 years. It's a gift. It's a gift because it pulls you out of yourself and into relationship and into willingness to see another and their needs.
Jesus, help!
Okay.
So, yes, you need to pushing.
Stop pushing. Stop pushing.
I think it's a girl. It's a girl. It's a girl. I was right.
We're back. We're going to be having a conversation with Yvette and Brian Day, who is a 2016 fellow. So we decided to bring in some of the fellows from previous documenting Detroit fellowships, only because they've been through this and they kind of know a little bit about what it was like to go out and shoot these in these very time crunched spans of this fellowship, as well as get that feedback. So I just want to say I'm really moved by Yvette's piece, just because, you know, some of the best photography has to be intimate, right? You have to be able to connect emotionally to what you're seeing. And, you know, as a mother, like all of that resonated with me in a really deep and profound way. And to capture that through the photography, it was just really remarkable. So I'm going to pass it off to Brian, because I'd love for the two of you to just kind of dig into what it was like to actually tackle this subject and then go through this fellowship to kind of make that story the best that it possibly can be.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Good evening, Yvette. How are you?
Hi, I'm well, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. What a beautiful project you had. We really appreciate it, the way you described motherhood in that video. Just a couple of questions for you. What drew you to focus on motherhood as your fellowship project?
Well, I've been doing a lot of work actually on the subject of motherhood. I've been doing it for many, many years. And really my heart was first captured even as a middle school and high school young photographer, where I was doing a lot of artwork related to my own mother, portraying her and her daily activities and just capturing her life. So I have a lot of work related to that. And then fast forward to now, I have 5 children. And so motherhood is a huge part of my life, being both an artist and practicing artist as well as a mother. So that, you know, just my natural and personal connection to motherhood was important. And I really wanted to uplift this vocation and calling. It's obviously something that is done all over the world, right? Being a mom, but I think it's important to uplift and you know, let others get an intimate look at what a day-to-day life is of a mom. So
Really wonderful. Thank you.
yeah.
You mentioned very modestly, but you're quite a prolific artist. You, multidisciplinary. You do lots of different things, and you work with the paintbrush. You do some live performances. In this particular project, though, you were really focusing on the camera as the medium. What would you say was the most challenging aspect of this project? And then conversely, what would you say was the most rewarding?
Well, I think with photography for me, I didn't have, I would say, like an extreme amount of professional training in photography. So I am versed in a lot of different disciplines and forms of art. I do love painting and performance. And so even there were, some technical things that I struggled with at first. And I started also trying to learn how to use another camera that was introduced to me through the program, which I'm very thankful for, actually. And so just learning, I know I only had like so many months. So getting over some of the technical hurdles were some of the challenges. But, besides that, I would say the fact that I took thousands and thousands of photographs. And with the fellowship program, they really try to get you to focus and be selective about which of these photographs is going to capture and tell your story. So that was an arduous process, but I was really thankful for it. The mentors, photographers who came alongside all of us to really help us to look at our work critically. That I really appreciated that. So
yeah.
And then you asked what was the most rewarding?
Sure.
Did you ask me what was the most rewarding?
Yep.
Yeah. So for me, just being in the homes of these moms is hugely rewarding, and just this project for me is just the beginning of what I can see myself doing more of in the future, and just being a witness through just me being there. It wasn't like I was always snapping pictures. I was talking to the moms, and so just becoming better friends with moms I knew for a long time and some who I just recently met. So those are some huge rewards.
Yeah. Even though you mentioned that you knew most of the moms in your story, it really is a special skill to be able to integrate yourself into someone's family so intimately, the way you did. I mean, you were literally in the delivery room with Priscilla.
Yes.
What was it like being in the delivery room with Priscilla and her family?
Yes, well, it helps that they're a wonderful and amazing family. So they welcomed me in that space, very intimate space. And, it's a cliche line to say, like, this is a moment once in a moment lifetime photo you're going to capture. But it really was, it's like, this is it. And my heart was racing, just like, you can't miss this. You can't miss this, just trying to time it to be there and, stay with them for hours upon hours and just waiting and praying that everything would go well for their own family, of course. And then, as a photographer, praying that everything would go well as I document and not miss it. I had like 3 devices literally. So in case something failed, just trying to capture that moment. And also because to give to them as a gift, obviously capturing this very, very intimate moment. But I cried. I mean, it was just, even having my own kids, it's something different when you're witnessing somebody else have their own child. And that was a beautiful moment when they sang to their daughter. Oh my gosh, it was absolutely precious to see that. So very privileged and honored to have been there.
Wonderful. You as you put this project together, it goes without saying it's audio and video. And you captured some pretty interesting sound bites. In fact, there's a sound at the very beginning of that video. I think I asked you about it offline. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us what that sound is at the very beginning of the video?
Yes. So that is the heartbeat of the baby who was born. Her name is Monica. And so I had taken the audio and put it right by the monitoring machine, before things got going, and I put the audio there just to capture some of the heartbeat.
Amazing. And great presence of mind for you to do that in that moment. What advice would you give to others who might be interested in documenting a project like yours? A lot of times, we think about documenting a project and we wonder, where do I even start? Like, what do I do to execute a project like this. What kind of advice would you give to folks that are thinking about that?
Well, I mean, definitely be prepared to put in the hours, I would say, and odd hours, different times of day, expect the unexpected. I would also say just like be respectful of your subject, especially, I mean, something as intimate as being in someone's home. Um, you want to be mindful of how you photograph them and what you capture. And yeah, so just be prepared to get to know your subject. Um, don't treat them like a commodity. It's a privilege to be able to photograph human beings and uh, converse with your subject and get to know them. I would say that would be my advice.
Oh, you did a really, really wonderful job.
Thank you.
So just a reminder for those who are watching, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat, and we'd be happy to field those questions with Yvette here. So we'll give a moment for that. Yvette, while we're waiting for any questions to come in, Kathy mentioned at the outset how she could relate to motherhood, and obviously I can't relate immediately to motherhood, but watching this segment really makes me reflect on my own mother and how she wore so many hats, and she worked so hard to not only protect and nurture us as kids, as one of your subjects mentioned, being sort of that protector of the family.
Mm-hmm.
But I think about how my mother also made sure that, along with my father, that we actually enjoyed our childhood. That they protected us from all the things that were going on, crazy stuff in the world, and made sure that we never lacked for love. Like what we didn't have in money, we made up for it in love. And so that really comes across in your story. And I think looking at each one of these amazing mothers, we can probably relate to all of them in some way. So we really appreciate that. Mothers deserve our undying support and appreciation and respect for the strength and the love that they show all of us and give so freely. So thank you so much, Yvette, for sharing motherhood with us. It was really beautiful.
Thank you. It's my privilege. And thank you to all the moms who let me into their lives. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. So for those of you viewing, if you want to see more of Yvette's work, you can follow her on Instagram at Yvette Rock Detroit, or check out her website at www.yvetterock.com. So let's move into our next presentation for the evening. And we've got another really prolific artist that's going to present work for us. Kathy, do you want to introduce?
I'm just going to thank Yvette for sharing her work with us, and just say that it was really an honor as the film festival to be able to host this with you. And so we do have 4 more shorts up, and I'm going to let Brian take it away and tell folks what we've got coming up, because you're going to be leading the discussion in the next one. But one thing I want to ask you before we do go is, so you were a fellow a few years back. I think you were in the first class, right?
I was, yep.
Yeah. So what was your project?
So my project was pretty interesting. I covered actually a couple of things. I documented Detroit firefighters in the city. And I also did an architecture project in the downtown and sort of midtown area, documenting the buildings of Detroit and sort of the changing landscape. But I did it using a drone. So it was a project I called Detroit from Above. So
I think it might be fair to say, before we go on to the next short, to let everybody know how to follow you on Instagram, because your photography on your Instagram is just stunning. And just recently, you were highlighted by Apple for the work that you've been doing, and were featured as part of a series of photographers across the country. You want to talk just briefly about that, and then we'll go right into Darryl's piece.
Oh, thank you. You put me on the spot there.
Sorry, it's too awesome to not.
No problem. Yeah, so Apple reached out. It was a huge surprise, so much of a surprise that I actually thought it was a prank. I ignored them for a few days, and they kept reaching out, and finally I responded to them, and they said, "Hey, we've got this idea for a project. We want to commission 30 photographers, Black photographers from around the country, to document your hometown and whatever you see as hometown." And so they sent me a phone, and they said, just go out and do whatever you want. Shoot whatever feels like home to you. And so I spent a lot of time walking around areas that are familiar to me and my neighborhood, and just taking those pictures. And Apple really did a beautiful job putting them together into some video spots on commercials and billboards and stuff like that. It's really been a project of a lifetime. So I appreciate it.
It's pretty awesome. All right. What, at Brian Day, right?
Yeah. So on Instagram, you can follow me as Brian Day. And my website is www.brianday.org.
Yeah, folks should check it out because your photography is amazing. Okay, you can take me off screen, Steve, and we'll get into Darryl's piece because I just, you're.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I appreciate it. To say that our next Documenting Detroit fellow is prolific is really an understatement. Red Bull House of Art resident, Kresge Fellow of Visual Arts, and so much more. Let's now look in on Darryl DeAngelo Terrell's Documenting Detroit Fellowship work entitled We Be.
We be rich. We be rich in people. We be rich in experience. We be rich in love. We be rich in family that's not our family, but we make them family. This be ours. We be rich. We be queer as fuck. We be not giving a fuck how you feel. We be not giving a fuck how you think we should present. We be not thinking about presenting queer. We just live in this shit. This be for us. We be black as hell. We be queer as hell. We be not giving a fuck what you think. This is us.
I'm really excited to bring Darryl and Brian back to talk about Darryl's work because it is really profound and, personal in a way that I don't think many other projects kind of touch that level, because you came at this in a very different way, and especially from the film perspective, and bringing your own voice into it. So I'm really, really excited to hear you kind of dig into that. So I'll let Brian take it away, and let's hear what you have to say about this amazing, amazing series of photographs.
Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that. Darryl, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
You are such a dynamic creator, educator, curator, artist, DJ.
Everything. I wear a lot of hats.
It's really a privilege to chat with you today, and it's exciting to see your project and hear your thoughts on the work as well. Tell us what drew you to this project.
Well, for one, I'm very queer, and I exist and live in my queerness, right? But something I realized over the past few years within media is oftentimes when we have conversations about queerness from a Black perspective, it's heavily centering Black trauma. And I was just like, that's not all we are, right? Like, while we always complain about slave narratives, right, and how they perpetuate this this consistent state of Black trauma, even when it comes to a queer perspective, it's also a lot of trauma. So like I was really interested in like, how can I document Black queer people here in Detroit existing? Just that. Like, I just want them to be like kicking it with their friends. I wanted them to be like cooking, cracking jokes with their family. So I'm just really interested in this just documenting their everyday experience. Yeah.
Excellent. Really wonderful. One thing that struck me in your project was how comfortable your subjects seemed to be as you documented them in their safe space. What was your connection to these folks, and how did you make everybody so comfortable as you made these images?
Well, okay. So as far as my connection to a lot of the people who I photograph, they so happen to be a lot of people who I just have relationships with via college or just via the community. So honestly, it was like me reaching, like posting on Facebook, hey, who wants to take a photo? And people just like, I want to take a photo, right? Which made it easy. But then it was like time restraints. And then it was like other things. Cause like our cohort was pretty much going on during the holiday season of 2019, right? So that was a bit of a problem. It became like really, really strenuous trying to get everything. But when I was able to actually get people, I don't know, like I'm just really nice and bubbly, so people were just comfortable being around me. I don't know. But
and a lot of people know and love your photography, so I'm sure when you put the word out, I'm sure you got a lot of responses.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. What would you say was the most challenging aspect of this project for you?
Definitely just again getting people to like working around people's schedule. So I've had some people who reached out and was like, yeah, I'm excited. And then the day of that I'm supposed to be like hanging out with them and documenting, they would ghost me. And I'm like, no, come back. So that was a lot of the problems. Also, due to the fact of the time of year it is, I was restrained to honestly just being inside of domestic spaces. Like I'm really interested in like how we also exist within intimate spaces that are still public, right? But due to the fact that it was cold as hell, like it was like 30, 20 degrees. I don't know, like what we got times 10. So I was confined to a lot of interiors. So it gave its own barriers that I had to work around. So there's that. And also like, so I'm not technically a documentary photographer, right? So this fellowship was a challenge on its own because I'm much more a portrait photographer, much more a fine art photographer. So I'm always overthinking. So like in my mind, my image is already constructed before I pull out my camera. But with documentary photography, I can't do that. I have to just pull my camera and just keep shooting. So like me walking around, I was the person who definitely walked around with a giant strobe light and a pole and a reflector to everyone's house with my camera. So, you know, all of that was interesting to maneuver through.
Nice. Well, what would you say that the converse of that, what was the most rewarding aspect of this project? As you mentioned, you work in different disciplines, and this was a little bit of a change for you to switch to this sort of unscripted, natural, documentary type photography. What was the rewarding aspect of that for you?
Honestly, it was the time I spent with the people who I photographed, right? Again, me knowing them personally is one thing, but it's another thing for them to trust me behind a camera. I feel like a lot of the times people always feel the need to really construct how they look when they're on camera. But for this process, it was very much like, do what you do, ignore that I'm here, right? And of course, we know how people are, especially Black people. They got somebody in the house with a camera, they start cleaning. But like, no, don't clean. Like, if your dishes are messed up, leave them dirty ass dishes out. Like I was very just like open, like I want you to be yourself. I want you to be as candid as possible. So like some people's like, well, I'm gonna smoke some weed. I was like, it's legal, go ahead, right? So like, I'm like, do what you do. So I don't know, like it was rewarding for my subjects to be completely comfortable around me.
Yeah. Well, what's hidden in your response there, though, is also the fact that clearly they trusted you and they respected you to be in their space as well. So that's really interesting and a wonderful skill, a new skill that you flexed, on this project. So really impressive. Earlier, Yvette talked about how much time you all had to invest into documenting your subjects and making that connection, building that trust. And I look at your images and your words as well, by the way, which are so thoughtful and intentional. Can you talk about how you were able to distill such a powerful topic down to only about a 2-minute video? How did you do that?
I don't know, honestly. I think I was just like reading a lot. I take in a lot of media, so I'm always thinking. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of reading. I read a lot of poetry. So if I'm correct, around the time that I came up with this, with the words that I spoke on throughout the video, I was like also reading poetry from Black queer poets. So thinking about that, but also just thinking about just our existence, honestly. So it just made it a bit natural and easy for me.
Yeah. Again, it's really wonderful because, I think one of the traps that we can fall into when we're trying to document something is kind of overdoing it and not knowing when to sort of cut it off. Like you almost say too much, right, visually. And so I think it was really powerful that it was succinct as well. Not just that it was so intimate, but that it was really succinct. So for young journalists and documentarians, again, same question that I asked to Yvette, that are thinking about how to get started and explore the world around them. What did you learn, or what are you continuing to learn about your journey that can help others who aspire to tell powerful visual stories?
Don't be scared, right? I feel like a lot of times, especially earlier within our photographic or documentary or journalistic practices, we get kind of scared to tap into subject matters that may be touchy, that may be intimate, that may be even personal. I find that subject matters that are more personal are oftentimes better produced, right? When you have a strong connection to it, it's good. So like, don't be scared. Not all of us have the best technology and equipment, right? So if you got an iPhone with a good camera, make sure you got enough space. Take photos. Always be willing to just get up and go. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's great advice. I remember I read a book about making films, and I think the advice was from Steven Spielberg, and he was talking about how we overthink. I don't have the right camera, I don't have the right lens, and he said, you want to start making films, just grab your camera and go outside.
Do it. Yep.
Just take your camera and go outside, and the rest will work itself out. We got a couple of questions from the audience that I'd like to share with you. The first is, did Darryl write the lyrics to the music in the video?
So the part that's playing in the back, no, that's some music I found. It's a song called Black Diamond. However, the part of me speaking that says "we be," I'm gonna be honest, it's a freestyle. Like I was like, oh, I forgot that a requirement was an audio component, and I was like, I know if anything, I have to give the gab, and I know I can talk shit. So. Let me just think, because I'm looking at the photos, I'm thinking about the song, and I'm honestly was thinking about some of the critiques that I had received from some of the mentors, in which one of the critiques was, well, how do we know these people you're photographing are queer? And honestly, I was pulled back because I was like, why? What are the indicators that someone's queer, right? And I'm like, why can't we just be? Like, why can't we just exist? Like everyone who's queer are not out here. Yes, queen. Granted, I'm very much that all the time, everywhere I go. But I was thinking about that critique and thinking about just the existence of Black queerness, and that's where the freestyle came from, because that's not written out nowhere.
All right. So now we got to add freestyle poet to your resume.
It's look. I'll be busy. I'll be doing a lot. So yeah.
You make it happen. Speaking of that, what's next for you? You got so much going on.
What's next for me? So I'm currently doing Rebel House of Art residency. It's a satellite residency due to COVID. And then in October, I'll be in Senegal for a month. I was awarded a residency through Black Rock Senegal, which is an artist residency by Kehinde Wiley. So I'm one of his residents for a month. So I'll be in Dakar, Senegal for a month, making work, getting a whole bunch of sunlight before I come back and just be freezing. So,
bring us some of that sunlight back, please.
I'm trying to keep the sunlight there. I'm trying to stay there.
Right. I hear you. Darryl, you know, in your statement online, I really appreciated your comment about making a way for Black people to feel seen and included. Mm-hmm. We see you. We see you. Thank you so much for sharing your work and your insights with us. For everyone that was watching tonight's presentation, if you want to see more of Darryl's work, you can follow them on Instagram at BLKBoyShine, Black Boy Shine, or check out their website at DarrylDTerrell.com. So there's Kathy. Kathy, thank you very much for rejoining us.
Darryl, amazing insight. You know, one of the questions I had, and I think some of the commenters had, was what was the most rewarding part of doing this project for you in terms of seeing it all at its completion now?
I feel like I probably already answered. I thought I answered it. I'm sorry. Honestly, just seeing the photos.
Maybe you did, and maybe I just want you to expand.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like just seeing the photos. I've been sending the link to people who I photographed and sending to people who I photographed information about tonight, but also I'm going to send them photos now that all the work has been released. So I'm just really excited to hear their thoughts around it. Actually, one of the people who I photographed, her name is Breon. I photographed her and her twin brother, and she reached out to me and was like, yo, can you make me a few copies? Because these are beautiful. So I want to definitely do that. So I think I'm going to gift everyone at least a printed photo. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you, Darryl. We're going to move on to our next project, but I wanted to talk to Brian really briefly about something. So, because Darryl mentioned this about the feedback from a mentor. And being a mentor is this tricky space, right? Because you want people to grow, but criticism can be, you know, this double-edged sword. And I just want you to talk a little bit about kind of your role as a mentor. You have been, you know, intimately involved in documenting Detroit over the last, you know, few years, and providing feedback and being there for these fellows so that they can grow as photographers. And I'm just curious what you think kind of the role of the mentor is and how you approach mentoring.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. I think the role of the mentor is really to challenge the photographer. And I think the biggest mistake you know, a fellow can make, or a person who's being mentored can make, is to either take everything the mentor says as gospel, or take nothing the mentor says as gospel. I think the real challenge is to find that balance of, you know, like making your own recipe, right? What can I take from what this person is telling me and apply it to my way of seeing the world? And what things should I listen to and say, you know, I appreciate the feedback, but I'm going to do it a different way, right? And the fact of the matter is, we don't want everyone to be the same, right? We don't want cookie cutters. And my perspective is going to be different from Darryl's, or different from Yvette's, or different from yours. We may have some insight that we can offer, but I think it's really important to ultimately let the photographer do what they feel in their heart. And to drive their own stories through their work.
That's definitely where the best photography comes from, is from that passion within, you know, and really trying to honor your subject, right? And what their story is. So coming up next, we've got another great project, and I want you to take it away and introduce.
Sure, will do. So our next presentation is by Documenting Detroit fellow Kelsey Clare Gaskell. It's entitled Becoming a Father. After the video presentation, stick around for a discussion on the work by Kelsey and 2018 Documenting Detroit fellow Valerian Waller. We hope you enjoy it.
Therefore, as we celebrate, I think the best thing, like especially today's culture, is bringing love, authentic love, to a world that is running around, chasing after everything, and yet they just want love. They just want to be loved. And you're bringing like the solution to the world's problems, which is a Christ-like love. You know, I think that's the best thing, is like proclaiming this great message that love has been revealed, and it's a love that's gift. You know, it's not a love that can be fabricated or made or produced, because we all want to run around and produce and make things and change the world to make it a better place. But the first stance for this love is not production, it's reception. It's receptivity, not activity. It's very admirable that Catholics stay in the city, and we have. I think that's, other religions that were in the city that I know of, a lot of them moved out, you know. And so I think that was very beautiful, and I think that's something that's not acknowledged, that the Catholics stayed. I think there's a lot of crosses in priesthood, just like in married life, but I think the cross of just staying faithful at times, you know, and especially with, like I mentioned, you know, with them about, like, you know, you're celebrating Mass and you're giving your life to the Eucharist, and like nobody else believes, you know, but you believe, but you feel kind of weird because you're like, am I the only one who believes in this? Does anybody else believe in this? You know, you guys don't act like you believe in it. I can hear your responses. I think too, like sometimes people forget, like priests are like have hearts. Priests struggle, and that's one thing I was thinking about recently. I was like, you know, one thing is like with priesthood is that good or bad priest, you know, is that we reveal. It's like art, like we reveal who you can be, you know, or we reveal yourself, your own humanity.
Welcome back. We just finished watching Kelsey Clare Gaskell's documentary called Becoming a Father. So I want to bring Val Waller back or with us. Val was a 2018 fellow, so she's been through what these fellows have been through in terms of the mentoring and putting together a project. And so I'm really excited that you're here to talk with Kelsey about Becoming a Father, which was a remarkable piece that just takes us inside places that oftentimes we don't get to see. So Kelsey, welcome and take it away.
Thank you.
Hi, Kelsey. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Val?
Good. I loved your project. I actually requested to interview you because it hits close to home. I'm actually a Catholic myself, and we've talked about that. I'm like 5th generation Black Catholic in Detroit. So I thought it was really cool to see a behind the scenes take of what it is to be a priest, and he's newly ordained. Had he been ordained probably a year but further back, I probably would have photographed his ordination, since I do a lot of work with AOD. So I thought this was really cool. So to that end, can you tell me what inspired you to, you know, choose to follow around a Catholic priest?
So growing up, I went to Catholic school, and so I went to church a lot, and I never really felt a connection to the priests that I knew. And so it was always very interesting to me, you know, what draws someone to the priesthood? What is it that makes you want to choose this as your life? And so thinking about that and getting the opportunity to do this fellowship, I really wanted to dive in and, you know, really meet someone. And the opportunity came up that I was able to work with Father Ryan. And he's such an amazing person. He's so giving and so interested in helping the city of Detroit, which is amazing. He learned Spanish within about a year or so, I believe, so that he can do full Spanish masses at St. Anne's. And also he, you know, is fluent now, so he's able to speak with community members who come to his church who couldn't speak to him very well if he could only speak English.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Because from what I know, St. Anne's is it has a very high Hispanic population. It's located in Southwest Detroit, right?
Yes, yeah.
That's awesome. And I think one of the more interesting parts of your project is that people kind of forget that priests are people too. They had a life before the priesthood. And so I thought it was very interesting to see images around him doing everyday things, like the shot that you did where he's at a grocery store. I think it's Whole Foods, looks like. I mean, like, who gets to see a priest just go grocery shopping? Like, the idea of what we have about what they do in their day, we don't think about those little ordinary things that, of course, everyone has to do. So what were some other things that you follow him around to do that you found the most interesting?
I was really lucky. Father Ryan was so open and willing to let me go with him to almost any event that he was going to. I went with him to do a small mass for a very sick nun. And that was, a very intense moment. And the nun actually didn't allow men into her room. All of her nurses and things had to be women, but Father Ryan was allowed in to do this mass. And it was just very powerful how, like I said, how easily he is able to connect with people. And going from a situation like that where he was, he can make these nuns laugh in this really hard situation. And then I went with him to some classes for children, and, he can go then and just connect with a 5-year-old. It was just amazing to see his ability to go from situation to situation and remember names, remember stories with people. And I went with him to a few of the marriage counseling meetings for people who were getting ready to get married at St. Anne's. And it's just, obviously as a priest, he can't get married, but his ability to connect what they were getting ready to do to his life in the church and how he could help them get ready for that was really cool.
Nice. So how, typically the Catholic Church is pretty locked down as far as how they allow things to be covered. Was it difficult to get permission to do this project? Because I was actually very surprised.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of time sending emails to anyone I could find online and just hoping, with connections that I've had from my past that, someone would say yes. And it just happened that I was able to connect with someone who knew Father Ryan, who was able to ask him if he'd be interested. And I was lucky enough that he said yes.
Okay. That's awesome. Oh, we've got a question from the audience. Someone's asking, what is AOD? I apologize. It's shorthand for the Archdiocese of Detroit, which is the collection of all the Catholic churches in the city of Detroit and beyond. Actually, it's pretty giant. It goes through several counties, all of which I don't even know, but it goes basically from Monroe up to almost Lansing. That's how large the Archdiocese is. So another weird bringing a camera into a church. I think that's one thing that I personally had to, at first, because you're taught for it to be such a reverent space. How was it for you to go into that space knowing you essentially had a job to do, but also to balance being respectful of this space and other people? Were there any people that got freaked out a little bit? How did that go?
It was definitely hard for me, just as a shy person, to walk into a very quiet church, and then my camera's clicking. But luckily, most people were more interested. And so they would just ask questions, and, I was able to tell them that Father Ryan was allowing me to do this. And just because of how wonderful Father Ryan is with his community, everyone was like, oh, that totally makes sense. But it was definitely hard for me just getting the courage and ability to really put myself in front of these groups of people. The photos I was taking at the beginning of the fellowship were usually from the back of the church in kind of more quiet spaces. And with the help of Kara and Alan and every one of the mentors of this fellowship, I was given, helpful tips and things, and really just told, you are a photographer, you're here to do this job, so do it as well as you can. And that was really helpful for me, and it definitely helped me get the courage and the ability to just walk in front of an entire church of people and take the photos that I wanted to get.
Yeah, so what is one thing that you hope the audience walks away from having watched your project?
I really hope that people will see the priests and really just religious leaders in general in their community as people. Father Ryan is such a nice person, but unless you were to go up and have a conversation with him, you'd just see him as another priest. And I just think it's really important to know that as a person, he's trying to do so much for the community, and his religion is what pushes him to do that.
Awesome. I think we should see if there are any other audience questions. Not sure, but while we're checking, can you tell us how to find you online? Do you have a website, and what's your Instagram?
Yeah, I have a website. It's kelseyclare.com. And my Instagram is Kelsey Clare with 2 E's on the end.
Awesome. So do you think, oh, well, okay, I take this back. It looks like we do have an audience question. So you shoot with film. I didn't know that.
So I actually started this series on film. The goal was to shoot the whole thing on 35mm film. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it just got really hard with, it was winter when we shot this series, so it got dark pretty early. Churches are also not super well-lit places. And in my work, I really try to make sure that I am not the focus at any moment when I'm shooting, and so I didn't really want to bring any extra lights or anything into these spaces. So I just decided for the quality of the images, it was better to go forward using digital photography.
Okay. And how much time did you take to complete this project?
It took me a little while to find Father Ryan. So I probably started in mid-November, and then we finished up at like the end of January 2020, a little bit later than that.
Awesome. Okay. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add? Something that you felt wasn't shared on your project or didn't come across?
Not really. I was really excited to see it. I think that, the Documenting Detroit team did an amazing job creating that video with the images and everything. And I just feel so blessed that I got this opportunity and that I was able to create this series.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Thank you, Val.
Thank you. It was amazing to see that project come to fruition, watching it through the fellowship and then seeing it pulled together. It was really well done. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
So I wanted to talk to Val for just a minute. I'm putting her on the spot for a second to talk about what you were working on when you became a fellow and what that experience was like for you back in 2018.
Yeah, so my project was called In His Shoes, and I actually followed around a cobbler. He works in Eastern Market, him and his family, and it was basically a project around him dealing with gentrification of Eastern Market, himself as a father and a small businessman. He had 2 daughters at the time. He actually has a son now, so there's 3 of them. But his youngest daughter has a genetic disorder, so she had a lot of different health problems. So I was able to follow the family around and just document what it was like to be a Black family owning a small business in the city of Detroit while dealing with all these, health hurdles.
I know that Kara, in the beginning, when she was introducing the program, talked a little bit about how this has been a catapult, I think, for some people into their photography careers. And I'm just curious, what was your impetus for actually applying to the fellowship and then getting accepted, and then kind of what has transpired since 2018 for you?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it's been transformative. I found out about the fellowship in a very serendipitous way, I think. I was walking around downtown. Actually, I was, I think I was coming from Vault of Midnight, and they had a window display right near it, and I saw this giant picture of this guy breakdancing, and unfortunately, I can't remember whose image that was from the fellows. I think it might have been 2016 or 2017 fellows.
Oh, it's Brian Day's image.
Look at that. No wonder. I mean, he's amazing. Of course, it catches anyone's eye, and it belongs on any billboard. So I saw that, and it said it was a fellowship and about documenting Detroit. And I was like, I can do that. I want to do that. So I applied. At first, I actually wasn't, but I took the time to go to one of their Q&A sessions, and I met one of the directors, Kara, and she was just so nice. And she literally walked me through the application process because I had no idea what I'm doing. And she even helped me curate the images that I was going to turn in for the application. And since then, I've actually become a full-time photojournalist. I work for a few publications locally. And as of a couple of days ago, I just got my first assignment with the New York Times. So I'm really excited.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Oh my God. What a great thing. Let me know what the story is, because I can't wait to see when it posts.
Of course.
What is your Instagram for folks that want to follow you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is PicVW Detroit. Pic as in picture, PIC. Yep. My initials VW Detroit.
Excellent. Well, we're gonna move on, and I'm gonna hand off to you to introduce our.
Okay, so our next fellow is Kellyanne Cummins. And her work is called And They're Gone. It's about the effects of gentrification on a multi-generational family.
I moved to this neighborhood a little over 5 years ago. It was summer when I moved in. The neighborhood was full of life. There were people walking all over the place. There were kids playing all over. Early on, I got to know this one family in particular that lived a few houses down. And there were 8 kids living there with their granny. And they were, some of them were siblings and some were cousins. And it got to the point where the kids started coming to my house a lot. I should say that when I asked Granny, her real name is Vita, but she always said we could just call her Granny. When I asked her if she and the kids would be willing to be a part of this project, she was very happy to be a part of it. And as the project moved along, she invited me to their church, their annual Christmas dinner at their church. And so I tagged along and I took pictures and I sat down with them at their table. And I got to know them pretty well. It wasn't every week, but we had this little, maybe a bi-weekly ritual with the kids where they'd come over and they'd do the laundry, they'd wash their school clothes. And so they'd just stay here. They'd hang out while it was in the wash and while it was in the dryer. And we'd watch TV. Or they'd ask me for the Wi-Fi so they could play games on their phone. Quickly, things started to change in this neighborhood. I guess one of the first signs was the dumpsters started arriving, and these houses were being gutted and then being redone by these fancy developers. And that was the first sign of trouble. And then the yoga studio came in on the end of the block. That didn't seem like a good sign either. At a certain point, the kids moved away, and Granny stayed in the house. For a while, she was all by herself. She has a landlord who's very difficult. And even during COVID, this woman was trying to evict her. the time I spent with them, the things we talked about, and the little glimpse I got into their world, what their lives were like, what their hopes were for the future. And it was a really valuable time that I spent with them. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the years that they were my neighbors, because they made this neighborhood a much better place.
That was Kellyanne Cummins' work, and I think the thing that it strikes me about this work, and when I'm going to bring Val back, and I hope that her and Kelly can kind of get into this, is as a photojournalist, we're oftentimes meant to kind of be at arm's length, right, and not become intimately involved in our stories. But there's some gray in some of the fellowship in terms of, telling personal stories. You do sometimes become intimately involved in your subjects' lives. And there's a real intersection here of documenting and documentary photography and your personal experience. So I'm going to hand it off to Val, but, just a lovely photography and a very emotive and personal kind of introspection about what you worked on. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I'll step out and let Val take it away.
Thank you, Kathy. Kelly, how are you?
Doing well, thanks, Bill.
I love your lighting setup. It's very moody. I have to say that you're actually the inspiration behind me wearing this t-shirt, Make the Hood Great Again, yes. Since your project is about gentrification. For anyone watching in the audience, please feel free to go to makethehoodgreatagain.com and get one. This is a Detroit-based brand, actually. So yeah, 8 kids in one house with the grandmother, or Vita. Yeah. You must have gotten really close with them for them to be so comfortable with you just kind of hanging around. And she lets you call her granny. So how was that? Are you still in touch with them?
Yes. Well, as one of the mentors said to me, she said, I don't think that this is just a project that you're going to do, for the duration of documenting Detroit. She said, I have a sense that you're going to be involved with their lives for a long time, and that this project could be very, very long term. And I tend to agree with that. And kind of like Kathy said too, it's so intertwined, it's sort of like, where is the project? Where is the friendship? Where is the relationship? It's all kind of gotten so close. It's unfortunately, it's not really that kind of cold, distant, analytical. Mm-hmm. I have kind of lost that, because I do know them so well now, and
Yeah. So to that end, were there any points during the project or the time frame that you were documenting them where you just found yourself not wanting to take photos because things got maybe a little too intimate or serious, or sometimes I know it's a little, there's a line that photojournalists kind of toe, where it's like, should I really be taking a photo of this right now? Did you have any of those kind of moments?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because I did mention that the thing about the dumpsters, and at the end, after my project was finished, a dumpster came in front of their house, and Granny was gone at that point, and I didn't even know if she knew that this had happened. I didn't really know what the situation was, and I called her and I asked her if she was okay, and she said, I'm not really okay, but I'll be all right. And within hours, they had cleared out everything. And so, you know, so much of their lives was in that dumpster by the end of the night. And when I didn't want to photograph that because I felt like that was such an ugly moment. I didn't want to record that.
So they are officially no longer in that house.
Right.
And what neighborhood is this all taking place in? I think it looks familiar to me. I'm thinking it's definitely the east side. I think it's like the Greater Mac area.
It's called the East Village.
Okay.
It's near Indian Village.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's exactly where I thought it was. Yeah, that's part of my stomping grounds.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, so you are actually returning, or you returned to Michigan before. So what were you doing? Where were you? Can you tell us a little bit about that and why you decided to come back?
Sure. I lived in California for most of my adult life, and I worked in the film industry. And then I decided to come back partly to be near my family. It was a lot of different reasons, and then I bought this old house, and I realized at one point I'll never be done working on this old house. So yeah, it's nice to be back in Michigan and be close to my family. And
yeah. So can I say, I think part of the interesting part of your project is, for me, it feels a little meta because in a sense, you're also gentrifying the neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And
I wanted for you to like kind of expand on your thoughts around that, like being part of it, but then also documenting it.
Yeah, it's totally weird. And Kara and I discussed that at some point too. And I'm definitely conscious of that. I suppose the area where I feel like there's a difference is that I bought this house like 5 years ago, and it was just it was, you know, kind of it was just as is. It needed a ton of work. I didn't try to change much, and I was just kind of happy to blend into the neighborhood. I wanted to get to know my neighbors. I wanted to be a part of what was here. I didn't want to change anything. I just wanted to be, I was happy with things as they were. And when I look around me, the houses that are being sold now are going for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the houses are just gutted, and they don't resemble what was here. And I don't know. And the people who move in don't seem to want to connect with the people who are here. And so I guess to me, that's one of the differences. Although, so I try to be sensitive about the fact that I am an element of change, but I don't want to be a destructive element of change. I want to be, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I respect that. I just thought, you know, I was just curious if that's something you thought about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so also there was a yoga studio that you photographed in your project, Santo. That sounds interesting, especially for that neighborhood. What happened to that? Is that still a thing?
No, I believe it went under during the pandemic. I kind of took issue. I mean, I love, you know, I lived in California for a long time. I like yoga. I think it's a great practice and everything. But there were elements about it that I felt it was sort of misplaced for this neighborhood. And honestly, one of my biggest issues with it was it took over this very dilapidated car wash that was on the end of the block. And it was someplace that was it was an eyesore basically. And so what they did was they made the interior beautiful, and they put kind of like a fancy neon sign on the outside. And then they left everything else as is, and I guess they thought that was cool. And I sort of felt like, if you're gonna, put your establishment there, at least make it look nice on the outside for the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I guess that was my reasoning. And now something else is there, and they did actually at least paint the outside to look nice. So.
Bless them. So I know your background is mostly in film, as you mentioned. So how was it to just kind of slow down and focus on still photography for this project?
Well, I really enjoy the more one-on-one aspect of still photography. I kind of like how it allows you to develop nice relationships with your subjects. So for that, I've kind of enjoyed the difference.
Awesome. And did any of your projects bump up around the pandemic? Like, did you take any images when we had to like just mask up and just suddenly everything was up in the air in the world?
Yeah, actually, I did get some good pictures masked up. I was on the porch with Vita and her friends when I was wearing a mask taking pictures, and they were drinking margaritas.
Yeah, sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you hope the audience takes away from this project?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, just for me, I'm extremely grateful that I ended up living in this neighborhood, and that I had as many kind and gracious neighbors as I've had. I was very fortunate, and I'm thankful that some of them still live here, but I'm very sad that some of them are gone. So. Yeah.
And do you think you'll continue to document the neighborhood, since this is about gentrification? I'd be interested in seeing images around what it's going to look like over the next 5-10 years.
I can't help it. I still, every time I go for a walk and I see something different, I do still take pictures. And yeah.
And lastly, please tell us how we can find you online. Do you have a website and social media?
I have a website, but it's still under construction, and I'm on Instagram at Kelly ANC.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kelly.
Thanks, Val. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly, for sharing your work and the insight behind kind of creating the work. I think there's a lot to be said for the body of work that the Documenting Detroit Fellows have been creating, and what it will mean for kind of the legacy of Detroit and its history in this last 6-7 years, and as the project goes on. I mean, Val was doing gentrification in 2018. You're doing gentrification in 2019. I think that story, as people make different marks on the neighborhoods and the community, and who is being left in and who is not, in kind of those conversations, and being centered in the stories that are being told is really super important. So thank you for bringing that to us.
Thanks, Kathy.
So Val, I wanted to ask you a little bit about kind of the similarities in terms of, a family and their presence within a neighborhood and seeing that neighborhood change around you. Did you feel similarities in terms of what you were documenting back in 2018 and a little bit of what Kelly was seeing in the East Village?
Yeah, definitely. Eastern Market is one of those spots that's really changed a lot. Even from 10 years, 10 years ago, definitely, but even within the last few, I know there's been a lot of shakeups with some of the new developers and the closing of some small businesses. Some of them I loved. There was that awesome Coney Island breakfast spot in Eastern Market, Supino's. There was an ice cream shop. And it just kind of changes the DNA and the feel of that space. And I know Mo the cobbler, at the time, he was trying to be strategic. He did thankfully have a couple of lease contracts in place that gave him a little leeway, but he did other things to try to improve the space. He also was able to get like a Heidelberg clock painted on the side of his shop in hopes that it would become like a location of distinction, which I thought was actually really smart. I'm not sure whatever happened to that, but the fact that he was thinking in those terms, I thought was really impressive. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes. Detroit is changing quickly all the time. COVID has exacerbated all of that. So I'm not sure if my own city is gonna be my city soon.
Yeah,
But I'm still excited for it.
I know. I feel like we've all been kind of living in these stay-at-home bubbles, and like you're going to come out and see stuff that has happened that you weren't aware was happening because we've just been so isolated. And that's where photography can do a great job of kind of, being a mirror on the community. And that's a good segue to RJ's project. So I'll let you take it away and introduce our last project, and remember that there'll be conversation right after, as well as if you have questions, don't hesitate to pop them in the chat.
So last and certainly not least, we have RJ Page with Pushing Through These Dark Clouds. It's a project about Terrell and his battle with MS and homelessness.
And there's so many dark days, there's so many dark days, dark clouds. So that was like, what year was that? That was 2015. That was right after I graduated high school.
Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, she left. She didn't say anything. She just.
When you say she, give me.
My mother. Before she left, she didn't say anything. She just, she's up and left. Like I heard her moving stuff. She packed up her bags. The moving truck came, and for the life of me, I don't know where the money came from to even have somebody move her. But she was getting her stuff together. I come downstairs, truck and stuff, and I didn't ask her, "Where you going? Or you not taking me?" I just knew. I was just there. I was in the days like, dang, she about to leave, and when she left, she just left the door wide open. I had stopped truck driving to try a different driving position. I wanted to do school bus driving. And I want to say I was like 75, 80% done with being hired into the company. And then that's when MS struck. There were certain days where my whole body hurts. My legs, my hands. For the most part, my hands is the biggest thing that hurts on me. And I need my hands to work. It's stressful sometimes because I'm so used to getting up, doing what I got to do, handling my business without really asking for no help. And, with everything that's been going on, I'm mentally exhausted from everything that's been going on because I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like I'm stagnant. So me living in a truck is good because I'm not paying rent, I'm not paying utilities, I'm not paying water, garbage, all that. And just say that rent money up. I'm gonna go to school for social work and psychology. So me being on the road, it was never my intentions to be on the road forever. It was just to get me over a financial holdup. Sometimes I feel like that great cloud that I talk about it following me, I still feel it's there a little bit from time to time, but it's not as cloudy as it was before I got in this situation. So it depends. It depends on your attitude, your feelings, your emotions. That's why I say I trust the process. You know, it's like it's gonna have to get greater later.
I wanted to kind of think about the series that we have just seen of these 5 short films and the breadth and the range which these photographers have kind of expressed in the stories that they've told. And I'm particularly moved by RJ's story because we've taken these broad themes like gentrification told through a single person, and then taken a single person and told a bigger story about struggle and endurance and overcoming. So thank you for bringing that story to our audience. I want to bring Val back in, so I want you two to kind of dissect some of that and just talk about this project and how you came to it and how you were able to get such intimate and personal images and stories, through this project. Thanks.
Sure, indeed. I've always been interested in the plight, the story of others. And I was struck by a series that Gordon Parks did. He took some photos in favelas, which are impoverished neighborhoods in Brazil. And I wanted to do the same thing in Detroit. So I knew I wanted to shoot some aspect of homelessness in my city. And Tehran just fell in my lap. I kind of just embraced myself in the homeless community, met Tehran, and the gregarious, joyful fellow that he is, he was more than happy to let me photograph him.
Yeah, I have to say, this story, it hit me in the gut, man. It is, I mean, he is so strong. The part where he talks about his mother, especially, can you give us a little more information about that story? Like, what went on with his mom? They no longer live together. They don't talk, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so in the piece, you saw the home that he was photographed in front of with the blue house with the water coming through the kitchen and the ceiling. He had mentioned to me that the home was like that when they lived there. He also told me that his room was upstairs and there were no stairs there. The landlord wouldn't fix the stairs, so they had a ladder going up. They had a ladder to get to his bedroom upstairs. Wow. And he said he noticed that one day his mother had removed the ladder and there was a moving truck outside. So his mom moved away, left him and his brother there in the house, and had taken the ladder so they couldn't get downstairs. So she left him at that last home that we photographed him in front of.
Wow. Okay. Wow. To that end, it looks like we have an early audience question. How did working on this project personally affect you?
Oh, that's a good question. Interestingly enough, so I had this perception of what homelessness looked like prior to meeting Tehran and prior to working with Tehran. Tehran shattered that for me. He kind of showed me that homelessness can look like, we don't know what it looks like, to say them. At least the person sitting next to you could be homeless and you don't know what they're going through. So it kind of gave me the sense of, everybody that we're dealing with in a daily life, needs that love, needs that respect, deserves that dignity. That just the dignity that all humans would ask for and deserve, basically.
Mm-hmm. Amen. And so he also talks about being diagnosed with MS, which is multiple sclerosis, correct? So when did that happen? Did that happen during the course of this project, or did he know about that prior to, like, when he was younger?
I think he knew about it a little bit before I met him. Forgive me, Tehran, if I'm messing this up, but a little bit before I met him, I think he actually had a job lined up, and he lost the job or figured he couldn't do the job because it's the pain that he had in his hands. So when he talked to me, it just seemed like every time he would get to one step in his life that we would deem a success, something would kick him back. He graduated from high school, and then his mother left him in the house. He had a job lined up, then he got struck with MS. And so it just kind of went to show that he's not his situation. He's not Tehran, a homeless man. He's just a man who had some tough breaks, and because of those tough breaks, he's without a home.
Right. And I actually felt that through the images and through the audio that you captured. I felt that, he just felt bigger than his body. He felt bigger than the MS that he was dealing with. He felt bigger than the particular situation that he was in, especially around homelessness, and then getting a job. And then you have a health crisis, which I know, there's different flare-ups. So like one day he can be fine and another he's not. So through all that, I was just really amazed by his like positivity and how that came across in his relationship with you. Because I know a lot of the times photojournalism, it can start to feel like what I like to call poverty porn, where it's just like, why am I really here? What is the real story that I want to tell? So yeah, what were you hoping that people would take away from this project? What was your motivation?
Just what you said, and I'm glad it came through. It's my first time seeing the piece as well. But I wanted him to be humanized. I wanted to show him as just a regular person moving throughout the city, just like you and I may move throughout the city. Just a young brother trying to make it. And although he is homeless, I didn't want it to just seem like, oh, look at this poor homeless guy. Let's all pity him. Like I said, respect, love, dignity. But that's really what I wanted to impart through the photos.
Yeah. So how is he doing now? Have things improved since you stopped documenting him?
Yeah, I mean, it's a process. He texted me the other day. I don't think he'll mind me saying this. He texted me the other day. He's like, I really need to talk to you. He was ecstatic that he heard from his father. They have not spoken in years. So he's happy about that. And there were a couple pictures in the piece where he was out on a date with a young lady. This was not the young lady he was telling me about, but he did inform me the other day that there's another young lady that he's been hanging out with, and he's having a good time hanging out with her. So
okay,
he's doing pretty good, living with his aunt right now. And he was in good spirits when I met with him this week.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
It looks like we have an audience question. So were there any resources or assistance offered to him during the course of your project? It looked like one of the images might have been him in a shelter or like some kind of housing that he was offered.
Right. Tehran did live in a shelter. While I was photographing him, he lived in a shelter for a time. He had a home where he was working, where they gave him a room upstairs for a short period of time. And you also saw he lived in his truck for the amount of time that I was photographing him. But yeah, he did have those services where he lived at a shelter. Actually, that's where I met him, at the homeless shelter that he was living in. So there were some services provided to him.
Okay. And how long did you do this project for? It seemed like you spent a lot of time with him.
Yeah, I kind of shot past the deadline. I think we were hanging out from November 2019 until about April-ish, maybe. So.
Oh, okay. So it bumped into like the pandemic stuff.
Yeah. We shot into the pandemic.
Wow. Do you know how he was able to kind of navigate the pandemic with like non-stable housing and stuff like that, and his health?
Yeah, he was on the road a lot of the time. That's the time he was driving trucks. He would check in with me from time to time, let me know what city he was driving through, show me some of the trinkets that he bought. Yeah, so he would live in the truck, sleep in the truck, leave the gas running at night so he could stay warm. But I don't think so he didn't mention anything about COVID, no COVID scares or anything like that. So I think it was
awesome. And how was this whole experience for you? Did you have a background in photojournalism? Like, how did you come across this fellowship? Like, what made you want to do this?
a loaded question there. No experience in documentary photography. This was my first project.
I can tell.
Thank you.
You nailed it.
Thank you. I have some beautiful people in my life who had seen my photography beforehand, and they were encouraging me to apply for the fellowship. I was just like, hey, I take pictures. They're all right. But a lot of people were saying you should go ahead and apply for this. I think it'll be a good look for you. So I did it, and here we are. So it wasn't me. It was the universe.
Yeah. So, I mean, are you going to continue this? What do you have planned next? Do you have any projects you're working on?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep going. Working on a project shooting Detroiters, all dressed up in abandoned spaces. We'll see how that turns out. I'd like to do something with that in the near future.
I'm excited to see that. So when it's complete, how can people find you? What's your website and your social media?
My website is rjpage.com, really simple. Instagram handle is pagerj13, and that's PAGE, so page RJ13.
All right. Any last words?
No, I just appreciate you all for the venue, the space, the opportunity. Thank you to Documenting Detroit. And thank you to all the friends and family who encouraged me and pushed me forward and have been supportive through this whole time. And thank you to Tehran as well.
Thank you.
And thank you, Val, for hosting a couple of these conversations. I really appreciate you being here. And I appreciate Brian leading us at the beginning. And I want to thank Yvette and Darryl and Kelsey and Kelly and RJ for sharing your fantastic work. One thing I want to note that at the Freak Film Festival Instagram, we've been hosting a lot of these pictures and I think tagging folks. So go there and check out and follow those folks, as well as at Everyday Motor City, which is the Documenting Detroit Instagram. So if you didn't catch all of the folks' Instagram names, you can go there and start following all of them, including Val and Brian. So I want to bring back Kara Schaefer, our executive director for Documenting Detroit. So I want to talk a little bit about the program and the kind of the inspiration behind it, as well as kind of where it's been and where it's going. I know that we had very similar kind of views of what was happening in photography about 5-6 years ago. A lot of extractive type of work was being done where people were parachuting in and coming in and telling Detroit stories, but in the same breath, they weren't from here. And so, they were either hiring fixers or people that were from here to tell the stories. And you and Alan Chin basically said, wait a minute, we've got talent here. Why is that happening in that way? So I want to kind of hand it off to you to talk a little bit more about that inspiration and where the program is, where it's going, and where you hope it will ultimately be in the long run.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you said it. Alan Chin and I, we, at the time that this program started in 2016, we had known each other for a little while through a place called the Bronx Documentary Center out here in New York City, where Alan and I are both based. I'm actually from Michigan. I'm from just north of Detroit. And I had the perspective of, having moved out to New York at 19 years old, had been here for over a decade, and had seen how Detroit was represented in the news. And it was usually with abandoned buildings.
It was usually with crime stats. It was with sports teams and cars. And it completely ignored the people living in the city. It ignored stories from the city that had anything to do with, you know, positive themes, with just general real life themes that, you know, that didn't revolve around abandonment or some like shock value headline. And so Alan and I actually, we ended up driving across the country to Detroit. I was just kind of in Detroit a lot at that point, and Alan's brother was living just outside of Detroit. And so we drove out, and in this car ride, you know, Alan's been photographing for 25 years all over the world. And he wanted to know what the photo scene was like. And I just felt like it was a bit disjointed, and said as much. And in 10 hours in a car across the country, we started talking about, you know, is there a way to make connections in Detroit? And is there a community that we don't know about? And then we kind of just got on this whole tangent of like, let's have a workshop, you know. And the more we thought about that, we didn't want to do a pay to play model. It did not feel right in a city like Detroit that has so many stories, but really just didn't have access to the network that gets those stories seen. And ultimately our program became just that. It is a network of people in the city and around the country that, you know, they're photographers, they're editors, they're documentary filmmakers, all working together and all talking with each other about their work, talking about where to publish things, you know, things like that. And so, you know, in 4 years, we've had 65 photographers go through our program. We've had a host of amazing people mentoring our fellows. We've had, you know, editors. I can't even like pull that list up. It's like 50 people long at least who've directly been involved with this program, and have been directly involved with, you know, hiring folks that have gone through our program once they've seen the portfolios that have come out of this. So, you know, where we're going, I think that's a little bit of a complicated question, just because, you know, we have an active pandemic right now. We have yet to decide how to navigate that as a small nonprofit organization who likes to network in person. You know, we like to get people under the same roof to exchange ideas and practices. And I think that at this point, it's still a little bit touch and go as to how we're going to move forward with our fellowship model, you know, in a safe way, in a way that's productive for everyone involved, in a way that, you know, the people that come in and mentor in Detroit from other places around the country will feel safe and comfortable. So that remains to be seen. But, you know, in the meantime, we have an amazing wealth of an archive from the last 5 years working in Detroit of, you know, all these photographers who've gone through our program. We get to keep up with what they're doing, which, you know, a lot of them personally are totally kicking ass. And we're happy to be here and to hear about it. So, I mean, the future for now is probably just is fundraising for the next big move. So, and obviously, you know about that because you're on our board and you're helping us to be an amazing organization, as you have since day one, which I have to say thank you for that. You know, it has to be stated. So,
yeah. It's been a privilege. I mean, to see great photography is kind of what I live for. So it's a win-win on that regard. You know, you touched a little bit on this, but, you know, funding the arts is not something that it's a chore, right? The grant writing and the networking and all of that stuff, and the pandemic has just compounded that. You know, where have you found support? Who are your supporters? Where are you finding you know, your cheerleaders in this? And talk a little bit about how you've been able to make this work. Because I know it's been, you know, shoestring, but you've grown it so much in these past 5-6 years. I'd be curious how that's come together.
Well, I mean, first off, everybody that has ever met me or Alan or any number of people that have been involved with this organization has heard us talk about it. The grassroots effort to keep this program funded is incredible. I mean, there are people giving to us on Facebook, on PayPal, at our events that we were hosting in person. You know, every fundraising drive that we ever put up just smashes our expectations every time. And it's so amazing to see that people are really, you know, they're into what we do and they want to see us do it. And so that the community support that we've had from day one in Detroit, in New York, and kind of everywhere in between is freaking fantastic. So I can't say thank you enough to, to everybody that's been with us since 2015, 16, when we started this idea, and since we've been running with it. Institutionally, the Knight Foundation was totally instrumental in us getting as far as we've gotten. They gave us a grant back in 2017 through the Arts Challenge. The NEA, the National Endowment for the Arts, again, like huge support from them. And a shout out to Sarah Terry. I don't have any idea if she's watching or not, but she's really the one that encouraged us to apply for that, walked us through it, and that was phenomenal. The Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs has now been supporting us for 2 years running. Fujifilm, they've sent us cameras. They've kept us, in the loop with new gear. They've been able to really support us in a very meaningful way. And a lot of the images that everybody just saw in these last 5 presentations, and also going forward to the next 2 weeks, a lot of those images were made on Fujifilm cameras. Obviously the Detroit Free Press, the Free Film Festival. This is now our fourth year pairing, I think, with Works in Progress, with events like this. The Free Film Festival has been a great partner, and the Detroit Free Press. I mean, you guys have put up a lot of articles about what we do. You've mentored with us. I mean, you, Ruck, Kim Mitchell. I mean, how many people have been through through our programs from your organization? It's fabulous. WDET totally held us down during the pandemic. They produced a series with 5 of our photographers called COVID Diaries. That's still online on our website. And also Photo Wings, which is a foundation that's run by Susie Katz. Photo Wings has supported our larger national exhibitions at Photoville for 2 years running. And that's been a lot of fun. It's been a great way for people that have no idea about Detroit to get to know what's happening on the ground here through, the eyes and through the lenses of people that live it every day. And as far as, people that have been involved, God, like my partner, Alan, my business partner on this project, is absolutely fabulous. He's pretty diehard. Hussein Merpe, Anina Knudsen, who's our comms manager, Rosa Maria Zamarone, who's been managing social media for us, Steve Koss, who edits all our video. Obviously you, Brian Day, who totally missed his calling as a TV anchor. What the heck? Totally. Rachel Thomas has curated a lot of things for us, has been there through our fellowships, supporting us. There's way too many people to say thank you to, but I really wanted to make sure that I even just threw their names in the ring here, as well as all the mentors that keep coming back to Detroit. It's just been, there's a lot of support there, monetary and also, mental and hand-holding and a number of things. So, yeah.
It's, I remember sitting at that coffee house, 5-6 years ago, talking about this project, and you really have created a sense of community amongst photographers, that is really remarkable. And again, I'll go back to the body of work that this organization has helped create, and its lasting impact on kind of the historical visual story of Detroit is just starting, and I think will continue. And to that, so it's a good segue into next week, which is we've got a bunch more films on Thursday, March 11th at 7:00. I really encourage, if you've liked what you've seen, to invite other folks to come in and watch those programs. And then on March 18th at 7:00, we'll have more. So again, more conversations, more stories, and more photographers showcasing all of this great work about Detroit. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining us. Oh, you have one more thing?
Yeah, so to follow this project on Instagram, Everyday Motor City is our handle. We do have a website where all 5 of the videos that screened tonight just went live. It's www.documentingdetroit.org. If you'd like to donate, you can donate to us directly on Facebook. You can visit our website, again, documentingdetroit.org, and there is a donate button right across the top that helps us keep it going, And Also, our parent organization, our parent nonprofit, which means all of your donations are tax deductible, is Facing Change Documenting America, and you can find us on Instagram primarily at Facing Change.
Excellent. So I'm glad you were able to get that shout out in there. So because in order for this great work to continue, it needs financial support. And again, arts and photojournalism have been hit hard in the last. I wouldn't say the pandemic. I would say it's been hit hard for decades in terms of just being funded and being supported. And so the work that you're doing is needs to continue to be supported. So thank you all for hanging with us and watching these films and supporting this work. And we'll see you all next week, Thursday, 7 o'clock on March 11th. Take care.
Thanks again.